Find other great podcasts like this one at podmoth.network.
Memento mori, an object serving as a warning or reminder of death. Death is inevitable, but how it happens can be tragically unfair. It can be dark, cruel, hateful, or just plain bizarre. I'm Megan, and I'll be your guide through these stories of chaos and devastation. Come listen as we dive into all types of true crime cases and learn about the evil that lurks among us, as well as the victims that deserved none of it. Join me every Monday for a missing person minisode, and every Thursday for a regular episode. You can go to mementomoripod.com for more information. Monsters are real, and they look like people.
Hey, Twisted listeners, I'm Cindy.
And I'm Diva.
And this is Twisted Listers, a podcast about murder
and lists.
We're brought to you by the Podmoth Podcasting Network. They're amazing. Mm-hmm. And sorry we're late again this week, guys. Capitalism kills. Kills your soul.
Yeah, Cindy's been working too much, doing too many things. And I've been baking cookies. You know, my high priorities are cookies this week. But
I wish that was my priority. Yeah. Should be. So this is going to come out unedited. So no matter how many times we say or how many times we start over, it's just coming out because I want to get
my cat. My cat just broke a glass though, so we'll see if she's up to any more mischief. We might have to have it. You know.
I mean, I can edit a tiny little bit, but
we'll see what she's up to.
Yeah, we'll see. Anyway, if you'd like to join us on Patreon, and listen, patrons, we love you. We just don't have time. Like I said, capitalism kills, and we're trying really hard.
I'll have time over the holidays to turn out another Patreon for sure. So
I'm the one who hasn't done one because I'm an asshole, but I promise we're going to get more stuff out. But if you want to just support us financially so we keep doing what we're doing, you can join us on Patreon. And we do post stuff occasionally. It's just not as frequent as we'd like.
And there's, if you just joined too, there's an archive of big heavy hitters and great cases. And you can go back and listen to them.
Yeah, there is a decent amount of stuff. So if you'd like to join us there, it's patreon.com/twistedlisters.
And don't forget about the murder map. We love the murder map.
Dude, that's getting updated all the time. So that's pretty fun.
Yeah.
I don't want to undersell us. I just want to be honest with people because we put out a lot of fucking content on the regular podcast. So we do. So if you just want to support us because you love us, you can join us at Patreon. Also, TikTok's just at Twisted Listers. If you'd like to join us on Instagram, you can do that at
Twisted Listers PCast.
If you'd like to send us an email, you can do that at
twistedlisterspod@gmail.com.
And you can check out our website at
twistedlisterspod.com.
All right. This is part 2 of Mall Murders. And Diva, I think you're going first.
I am, and I'm very excited to brain dump on you about this very mysterious. There we go, please. No, fire truck.
There we go.
I'm very excited to brain dump on you about this very mysterious disappearance. It's like peak mysterious. It's up there, and as far as the mysterious ones goes, we easily could have done it for that list.
Nice. Okay, I'm excited to hear.
This is the Fort Worth missing trio.
Oh, I don't know this one, but I saw and I was like, ooh, this is going to be interesting. So,
yeah. So this happened in 1974 in Fort Worth, obviously, Texas. I'm just going to jump right in. On December 23rd, so this is also a very Christmassy case.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Renee Wilson, who was 14, wanted to go to the Army and Navy store because she had put a pair of jeans on hold there, because that used to be a thing.
That's a thing, yeah.
And her good friend, 17-year-old Rachel Trelica, said she would drive her because obviously Renee's too young to drive. And they, unfortunately for them, I guess, had to drag along 9-year-old Julie Ann Mosley. She's the little sister of Renee's boyfriend, Terry Mosley.
Okay.
And it's a kind of a classic thing where the little girl wants to come along and the girls are kind of being nice. You know, this is the boyfriend sister. So they're kind of like, oh, okay. But they don't really want to bring her.
Right. But they just do it because.
Fine. So all three girls plan on going to the South Seminary Mall after getting the pants at the Navy store, Army Navy store. And Renee's boyfriend, Terry, the Julianne's older brother, was also set to come, but he backed out at the last minute because he had to visit a friend at the hospital.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's the outing. So the girls get the pants at the mall. We know they did this.
Okay.
And then they did make it to the mall, I'm pretty sure, as witnesses saw them walking around to different stores. And there's also one witness who knew, I think knew Renee or Rachel, one of them, and actually said hi, oh, hey,
Okay, so they're definitely at the mall.
They make it to the mall. Yeah. Okay. They were supposed to be home by 4 p.m. Because Renee really wanted to go to a Christmas party. I think Rachel as well. And they were really excited about it. It was no, we're gonna be home. We're gonna fucking, party. They did not come home.
Right.
Julie also had a curfew. She couldn't stay out late. Obviously, she's 9.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And their parents, obviously, as they don't come home, get more and more fucking freaked out, as you would.
Right.
And they quickly start searching. They go to the mall where they knew that they were. And they, I think pretty quickly, later that day, find Rachel's car locked in the Sears parking lot.
Okay.
There is a Christmas present in the car. And it's discussed in the news reports as something they bought at the mall.
Okay.
So we're gonna go with that, although I feel like it's a little ambiguous. Could it have already been there, right?
Right.
I don't know. But sometimes you do run things back to the car and then even go back to the mall, so that's also a scenario. It doesn't mean they were done with the outing,
Right.
It's unclear, but it's seen as evidence that they made it back to the car, or at least bought something and put it in the car.
Okay, so did they ever say what that gift was? Or
no.
What? Oh, okay.
Nope. Christmas present, though. I think a present for someone else. Basically.
Okay, and it was wrapped, but they don't...
I don't know that it was wrapped, but there was something that they knew was a Christmas present for some reason. I don't know.
Okay. Probably her mom was like, oh yeah, she was going to buy that for so-and-so or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The car was locked. Okay, I said that. Okay. So, they were seen at the mall. So there was also scattered reports later of people seeing the girls with 2 men in a pickup truck.
Ooh.
There was also a guy that came forward in the late 80s, so pretty late in the game here, and said that that day he saw a girl being shoved into a car by a guy, a struggle, and this guy, he kind of approached him, and the guy said, don't worry about it, and that it was a domestic dispute or something like that.
Which, I'm going to worry about that. Don't worry about it. I'm just beating up my girlfriend.
Don't worry about it. It's just my girlfriend. Yeah, no, it's not a stranger. It's the person I beat up at home,
Right. Jesus. Fuck, dude.
Yeah.
That's
okay.
dark.
Yeah. So the witness sightings here are all pretty shaky though. Nothing is really that solid.
Okay.
So that night, Julie's mom got a phone call, and that's a little girl, and she heard a voice that she swears was Rachel's.
Okay.
And there was a silence on the line, and the voice moaned and said, "Mama." And it was starting to say something else before someone took the phone away from her and hung up.
Fuck.
That's that night.
That's horrible.
So the next day, Christmas Eve, Rachel's husband, and we're going to address that in just a moment.
Wait, what?
Yeah, she's a 17-year-old high school student with a husband, and
okay.
I'm going to circle back to that. Yeah.
Yeah, please do.
I will. I'm not dropping that.
Okay.
Rachel's husband got a letter clearly claiming to be from Rachel. So this is the big piece of evidence in this case, but it just makes it more mysterious.
Right.
The family has never considered it to be from her. I'll just say that straight up, and I'll get into why. Okay. The note was handwritten, and it said, quote, "I know I'm going to catch it," which catch shit, I think.
Oh, okay.
Catch it. "But we just had to get away. We're going to Houston. See you in about a week. The car is in Sears upper lot."
No. Who did that?
Nope.
That's the abductors right there.
Yep. Bingo. So her family didn't believe it was from her because, number one, it was addressed to Thomas, and her family's absolutely fucking not. She only called him Tommy. She would, her husband. She would never say fucking Thomas. And it was also signed Rachel, but the author had clearly been unable to spell it, and first wrote an extra E and then wrote the L of Rachel over it.
Oh, okay. So that's super convincing, you fucking moron.
Yeah, so someone who struggled to write Rachel. It does not have a obviously return address. It just has a blurred postal code, and people have done a lot of analyses that have come to nothing about where that could be from. It's unclear what one or two of the numbers are, but basically it's from like a pretty close by town in Texas. I think like 30 miles away.
Okay.
The cops, like always, told the parents right out of the starting gate,
they're runaways.
These girls are runaways. Yes, exactly. They're all runaways. Even the 9-year-old.
Lazy fucking shitheads. Like,
yes,
so pathetic.
It's so pathetic. And when the letter comes in, they're like, "Oh wow, this is the most runaway ever. This is definitely a real letter."
Oh my god, case solved. We can pat ourselves on the back. Like, oh god,
that's exactly how it went. But a few questions obviously arise. Like, why would two older girls take a 9-year-old on their runaway trip?
Right.
That they didn't want to take to begin with.
No.
And then why would they have invited the boyfriend to the mall? Was he essential? Was he? And they're like, I guess I'll run away without him. Like, it's very strange. Why not take their car? Why leave the car at the mall? Right?
Yeah. This is ridiculous. This is fucking ridiculous.
Why go out and spend money first on Christmas presents? Why buy Christmas presents?
Yeah.
If you're running away.
Jesus Christ.
And Renee's mom also made a great point, I think, when she said, quote, no 9-year-old is going to run away from home 2 days before Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah. Do the cops still say this is a runaway case?
No, but they do for quite a while.
Fucking morons.
Quite a long time.
Useless.
And how much evidence or witnesses or what the fuck ever was missed because the cops were just like out to lunch, you know?
God damn them.
Yeah. And also people said that Renee was really looking forward to the party. Like, it was a big deal for her. Like, it's not the behavior of someone who's going to run away. Like, you have people who have plans, you know?
It's like they do everything they can to not be helpful. I mean, we know that. It's not like they do everything they can. They do everything they can to not be helpful because they're fucking lazy, stupid, worthless fucks.
Correct.
I'm sorry, but these are children. This makes me really angry.
Yeah, they're all children. Yeah. So the girls were officially listed as runaways and not properly investigated until a full year until their disappearance. And again, these are children.
That is unfucking acceptable. Jesus fuck.
You can't even do the thing where you're like, oh, she's an adult, she has a right to go missing, right? These are literally 3 children.
That is so upsetting.
70s in Texas, man. And we saw it with the Texas killing fields. Like, I just watched that Netflix documentary, which I recommend. It's really good. Yeah. In that documentary, all those families, even the ones that are teens and children, are told that they're runaways. All of them.
That's so fucked up. This is making me really angry.
Runaways, yeah. And you know what? They're almost never runaways. Like,
yeah, no, they're really not. Nope.
But the family was basically doing their own investigation. They also hired a private investigator who was just doing the investigation because the cops weren't.
Right.
This oddly, and this freaks me out, and I've been thinking about this, in 1979, pretty early on, that private investigator that they initially hired died of suicide by drug overdose, and before, in like his note or something, specified that all the files from this case should be destroyed.
What?
Yeah, like, I don't know what to make of that. Seems ominous though, right?
Yeah, a little fucking bit, man.
What? Why?
Like, what exactly?
Did someone pressure him to say that, or
did somebody kill him? That's insane. What the fuck, dude? Okay, that blew my mind a little bit.
Yeah. There's more shit coming up. Okay, so a quick note on the husband situation, because I just wanted to address how crazy this is. So Rachel is 17. She has a 21-year-old husband. He is divorced. He has a 2-year-old child, and he had previously dated Rachel's older sister, and that's how they met.
Jesus Christ. Well, I mean, if you're getting married at 17, you've got time to have a child and a divorce by 21.
Yeah, exactly. So her sister, Rachel's sister, Deborah, had recently fought with her boyfriend and moved in with them. I guess she lives outside of the house as well. That's Rachel and her husband and the ex/sister had moved back in. And so also he married Rachel when she was 16.
Wow.
I mean, Yeah, I referenced a podcast last time about child marriage, and it's like, it's fucking still allowed all across these different states, that like even with a parental signature, like or not, sometimes that like a 15, 16-year-old can get married. And I'm like, no, like that's just so obviously fucking not cool.
It's so gnarly. Like, it's,
I don't understand.
Yeah. And especially like, oh, well, they're a child marrying an adult. Like that to me is
like here's the thing. They can wait till they're 18. Like that law only benefits like pedophiles or something. Yes. Like, I don't get it.
Like, just make them wait. They'll be fine. If they really want it, they'll want it in 2 years or 3 years.
And I guarantee absolutely no one should marry the person they're dating when they're 16. No one.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe there's a couple cases out there of like high school sweethearts that are like happily married, and that's fine. God bless you, but like it's not the most common.
It's not enough that there should be a law allowing it. Let's just say that.
Like, and those people could have waited till they were 18.
Yeah, 100%.
Or maybe they did. Yeah.
100%.
Okay. All right. So just a note about that. And people will throw suspicion on the husband and the sister because of just this situation being weird. But I personally don't think that that's enough to warrant that they killed her. I don't see the connection.
It also seems like kind of a lot to get kill all 3 of them over that. That seems like a lot. Especially like if you're all living together, it'd be a lot easier to just like kill her. Like,
yeah, why take them from the mall?
Yeah, the whole thing.
If it's a domestic fucking abuse.
I mean,
thing.
Although maybe it was like to throw them off the trail and it worked, but also like they don't know how to spell people's names and like they're, you know what I mean? It just doesn't add up.
No.
Yeah, maybe we would have more information if the cops had, looked into it before a fucking year passed. Insane.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So it's obviously very fucking unsolved. So here's a lot of questions and theories. A homicide detective who was on the case as of 2001 said that we can basically say that at one point they were seen with an individual. So it is, I think there's a credible sighting of the girls with a guy in a car. I think that is like safe to say.
Not a truck, but a car.
Or maybe it is the truck one. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Boop, 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 boop. This guy also said there was more than one person involved. He thinks that they left willingly with someone they trusted.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's possible that it wasn't like they were being abducted, but rather someone picked them up and said, "Hey, do you want to go to the party, or do you want to or lured them away to something that sounded good,
right,
or reasonable?"
Okay,
that's possible. So, and then nefarious shit later happened. So, who wrote the fucking letter? I wrote. Was it the killers kind of trying to throw people off the tracks? Obviously, it seems that way.
Yeah.
It could also, in my opinion, be kind of a cruel random prank by someone.
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
Yeah, it kind of smacks of that. There were also prank calls that followed in the years after the girls disappeared.
That's so fucked.
But the fact that it was quite early on in the investigation and they already had that Sears detail implies that it was, if it was a prank, it was someone who knew what was going on.
Yeah, it wasn't just a random.
No, because it wasn't like full news blitz yet, obviously.
Right. Jeez.
Finally, another private investigator named Dan James, who I will just say straight up, kind of sounds like he's full of shit because he's one of those guys who's just like, I'm an amateur sleuth, which no offense to amateur sleuths, but they're not always like 100.
No, I mean we've done a whole list on amateur sleuths that like kicked ass, but that's not the same.
They're not
thing.
Always great.
Some of them just want to get on TV.
Yeah, some of them just like have an ego, but not a lot of talent.
Information.
So So hold on, a sneeze is like torturing me. When it's just sitting right here.
Do it.
Oh my God. Okay.
This is staying on the podcast, but do it.
It's really like, oh, okay.
That's the worst when you can't sneeze and you need to. Oh, it's like a life ruiner.
All right. It's
hate
not
that shit.
Okay.
Oh,
maybe
that's
it'll surprise me later.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So this fucking guy, Dan James, has come out with a bunch of statements essentially saying like, I figured it out. I know what happened, with like very little information about why, like what's led him to that conclusion. Okay. But just for the sake of fucking being,
I mean, we don't have anything else,
Yeah, exactly. I'll just say what he says. So he thinks that someone, and he has, like, to be fair, like done a lot of work and research theoretically and interviews and whatever the fuck.
Okay.
He thinks that someone close to one of the girls, probably one of the older girls, abducted them or lured them away. And then he thinks they were basically held against their will, and the youngest one, Julie Ann, was killed or died accidentally fairly early on.
Okay.
And then Renee and Rachel were kept alive for a longer period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point, Renee died and Rachel was the only one left alive.
Okay.
And he says, this is the creepiest shit, if it's true, that Rachel visits Fort Worth every Christmas. And I'm not sure if he means like with her abductor or on her own, or if she's like held in a cell and she's allowed to go out, like Colleen Stan style. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
what exactly that means. But according to him, there's been consistent sightings of Rachel over the years, especially around Christmas time in Fort Worth. And again, there could be, for all I know, but like also sightings are not reliable.
No, they're not.
That doesn't really mean anything.
Like, get a photo. At this point, everybody's got a cell phone in their pocket. Snap a pic.
Yeah. Also Rusty, who I think is Rachel's brother, is very closely affiliated with this guy. This Dan James, the detective, died in 2001. But when he was still making statements and talking about this case, the brother Rusty came out and was like, "Yeah, I believe this story." And they were both openly suspicious of his sister Deborah, and Tommy, the husband, and they implied that Deborah wrote the note, and Deborah has said, "No, I fucking didn't. This is stupid."
Well, why don't they have a handwriting expert? You know what I mean? Like, those aren't super reliable, but it would at least do something. Like,
I don't think they've done that with Deborah in particular, but I mean, it does, like, I don't want to gender handwriting, but it does look like a stereotypical, what you'd expect of a female's handwriting.
Okay. Which also could be intentional because they're trying to say that a female wrote it, you know?
Yeah.
But I mean, even a dude trying to write like a woman, it's not.
No.
Like, let's just be real. Like, it does look different. It does.
It does. Often it does. Yeah.
Although my handwriting, people are like, you write like a 5-year-old boy. And I'm like, yes, that's true. Very true. So.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say across the board, but often it looks like gender.
Right. Agreed.
Yeah. So, so that's the theory there. Again, I don't have any information about why they suspect Tommy and Deborah, and like, I don't know. It doesn't play out to me. I would tend to think, here's my theory, that this is either a stranger abduction, which is fucking possible, as we talked about. Like,
yeah, for sure.
My case literally from the first episode was a stranger stalking girls at the mall when they arrived, right, and hanging out in the parking lot. Right. And then when they came out, like hovering by their car, and when they came out, attacking them. So I could easily see it being that.
Right.
And you know, that's why they were seen with the two guys in the fucking truck, because they were being fucking abducted, right? But I could also see the theory being correct that they were abducted by someone they knew or lured away, like I said, under the pretense of like, oh, let's go to the party, or like, you know, something fun, just to get them in the car. And if it's the latter scenario, I think that does implicate the family potentially, because it has to be someone who knew they were going to the mall. Right.
Yeah. And I mean, to me, it feels more like they were lured away because, I mean,
there was no struggle as well.
Exactly.
There was no blood.
Exactly. And I feel like more witnesses would have seen, I guarantee you that more people saw them than realize. And if it had been like an abduction or something violent or something like that.
Yeah.
Unless they
seen it.
Yeah, or they would have, even if they're like holding guns to them so they can't scream, the girls are going to look distressed. It's going to be enough that somebody would have noticed. Whereas if they're just leaving like on their own, nobody's going to notice that because nothing looks weird.
Yeah, you know? I feel like it was a teen boy or like a early 20s boy or something that knew them, or that knew they were going to the mall somehow.
Agreed.
And pulled up in his fucking truck and was like, hey, so I'll take you guys to the party, or you know, something like that.
Yep, I agree. I agree with that. Yeah.
I mean, but like I said, I think it could be a stranger abduction. It's a little bit less likely, but it could be.
It could be.
Yeah. So it's still an open investigation. The family is still super active. A lot of their parents have died, sadly, but their siblings and remaining family are still very active. They have a missing Fort Worth Trio Facebook page you can check out. And in 2018, they actually worked with Texas Equisearch, which, if you remember, was founded by a family member of a victim from the Texas killing fields.
Yeah. Oh,
and they cover the founding of that in the Netflix show too. Wow. And they work with Equisearch to have a nearby lake search with a dive team. And I think they find 3 cars, but they are not connected to this case. They're just like, oh shit.
Isn't that always so creepy when they're like, oh, well, we found a bunch of other dead people,
other bodies,
missing car. Yeah, I hate that.
No, I think there was just cars. Yeah.
That's so crazy though.
There's been tons of searches based off of all kinds of things, based off of psychics sometimes saying where you can find the girls here or there, and they don't ever find anything. But they've done tons and tons and tons of searches. Still nothing. And there's also age progressed sketches that have been made of the girls you can go see, who would now be between the early 50s to kind of mid 60s.
Yeah.
So they theoretically could be out there if Dan James's theory is correct that Rachel is. A lot of psychics have said that they're dead, and I tend to generally like vibe with psychic detective shit. So I'm like,
yeah,
if they're all saying that, I think it might be true.
I mean, it just stands to reason at this point as well.
Yeah.
You know.
Sadly. But yeah, that's the case. It's just they just disappeared into thin air. And there's literally no fucking evidence. And again, I don't know how much was lost from the cops not caring for a little while.
A long fucking while, dude. A year? That's like
Yeah. And it's just heartbreaking to think of these families dealing with this all the time. Obviously, all three girls say that this just like wrecked them. They wrecked the whole family. Right. And Rachel's, I saw a news story from a couple years ago, so I'm not sure if she's still around, but Rachel's pretty elderly mom every year puts out 3 Christmas light angels on her lawn at Christmas for the 3 girls.
That's fucked up. That's so sad.
So, yeah, that's the case, and it's really fucking sad and weird and mysterious. Also, I don't think there's any thoughts that this could be related to the Texas killing fields, even though it is a similar timeline
and area, kind of, right?
Yeah, but I just wanted to throw that out there as a kind of last idea, because I don't know, where is that in Texas, the Texas killing fields?
Well, I mean, it's kind of going down toward the bottom of like the coast, like, but it's the weird thing is the Texas killing fields, at least as I researched them, it really, like, there's one area, but it also refers to like a very long stretch of highway, and it kind of covers more than just one area. So
it's kind of south of Houston, right?
It is, yeah, but like I said, like it's a more specific, it's a less specific area than I originally thought when I started researching.
Well, it's a field.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. There is a field, but then if you look at the people, the murders attributed to it, they'll be like 40 miles apart.
Right.
So it's like a weird, there is a field, but it's actually a pretty small field. They did find like 5 bodies in there.
Right.
But there's a ton of other bodies that are kind of all lumped into this.
Yeah, the Texas killing fields is in League City, which is just south of Houston. So it's quite a ways away from Fort Worth, but you know, who knows?
But if you look up the Texas killing fields bodies, there are ones that are like 40 miles north, 20 miles south, 15 miles east. The actual field itself, there's the reason that they link all these other murders is because they think that like whoever was dumping there potentially was also dumping in other places and working and like murdering in other places. So
yeah. I mean, it's anything is possible. And also I will say that those girls were of similar ages, and I think there were also girls like pairs who disappeared at the same time.
Yes. Yep.
So yeah, it's possible.
Jeez, dude, that's wild.
Mm-hmm.
Whew, okay. Well, I'm going to surprise everybody by doing a case out of Southern California, which nobody would ever expect me to do. This is the Puente Hills Mall murders.
Ooh, yeah, fun.
Mm-hmm. I just want to say that this whole case, all of this is deeply steeped in racism on a lot of different sides. So we'll talk about that. So this takes place in 1991. On the evening of July 5th, 1991, 22-year-old Jose Avina was driving his candy apple red 1987 Mitsubishi truck on the way to his fiancée Maria's house in Monrovia, California.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful Monrovia.
Yes. Now Monrovia, right. Monrovia, Puente Hills, City of Industry, Covina, West Covina, they're all LA County, but they're kind of inland. So they're east and a little bit south. So people say, oh, I'm from LA. But just to be honest about like kind of our dickishness, we don't really consider like if you're from West Covina that you're like from LA. You're from like somewhere else.
Covina.
Yeah, and it's LA County, but it's not like LA. Whereas if you're like, oh, I'm from Santa Monica, it's like, oh, you're from LA. Oh, I'm from Burbank. Oh, you're from LA.
It's on the margins of LA.
Yeah, we're just dickheads. It's more disenfranchising of like people of color, so it's kind of shitty. But anyway. So they're closer, they're kind of in between LA and Orange County. So it is Southern California, but they're kind of like the forgotten cities. So anyway, Jose's driving. He's 22 years old. He loves this truck, like probably as much as he loves his fiance. He spends most of his paycheck. He was like in construction, I believe. And he spent most of his paycheck buying new parts for the car, upkeep. It's only a couple years old, accessories. He would clean and wipe down his truck every single day. So he's like obsessed, right?
Yeah.
So he pulls up to either a stop sign or a stoplight, and somebody bumps him from behind in another car. You can imagine he's pissed, right?
Yeah.
So this car has a black man driving with a white girl in the passenger seat, and there's another car behind it with another black man driving. So the two black men get out of the cars, and an argument ensues. Like I said, I'm sure Jose is really pissed about his truck, and it was later said that there were some slurs kind of thrown back and forth between the two groups. I don't know for sure. There's only one side of the story, unfortunately, so whatever they say, it's kind of hard to contest. It's unclear if the men bumped his truck on purpose or if this was truly an accident, because people involved would later kind of give differing accounts. In the end, they ended up shooting Jose in the back of the head with a fucking shotgun as he tried to flee.
Whoa.
Yes.
Back of the head.
Back of the head. So he's running away because he saw they had a gun, and they fucking shoot him. They then put his body back in his truck, drove it around, and then parked it, robbed Jose's body, and robbed the truck of the stereo, because I'm sure he had a really nice stereo in his truck.
Yeah.
Probably had a sweet cassette player in it, because it is 1991.
Right.
He was found the next day, very unfortunately. Police had no leads, and because he was a young Latino man in a sort of nobody cares about / bad area, they weren't exactly trying their best to solve the murder.
No.
They did even start to say, oh, we think it's gang related. And his family was like, just because he's Latino does not mean he's in a gang. Like, he had a good job. He had a fiance.
Yeah.
Like, the fuck. About a month later, in early August 1991, a 55-year-old man from Chino was abducted by two young men in an orange Pinto or other kind of Dodge of some sort, and taken first to an ATM. He was actually asleep in his car when they rolled up on him. They grabbed him out of it. They made him go to an ATM and pull out money. They then drove him to a sheer embankment near the Morris Dam, which is in that area. And this was well known at the time as a dumping spot for bodies. In the 90s, cops would find a body there approximately twice a month. That's how often. So it's like, I don't know, maybe like stake it out. Cops, do your fucking job. Like, hang out there and wait for people dumping bodies. But of course they didn't, because again, they don't give a shit. So as this man was made to stand near the embankment after being robbed, another car drove up with a young woman inside. The man heard one of the young men say to the other, shoot the motherfucker. And as he was on the edge of the sheer cliff, it wasn't like completely sheer, but it was like a real heavy grade.
Yeah.
He jumped down the steep embankment and like rolled down.
Wow.
Later said that as he jumped, he heard the gun click. So had the gun not jammed, he would have been shot.
So close. Yeah.
Yes. But he was able to hide until both cars drove away. He then crawled back up and flagged down another car, because people did drive by there. They took him to a payphone, then to the hospital. He had a pretty bad head wound, but he was okay. He was able to give a description of the people. He told the cops the story. The group did steal his car, which was later recovered and has been stripped of like the hood, the headlights, like all these different pieces were taken off of it. But again, no leads. Again, this man was Latino, so not a lot of, interest in solving this.
Yep.
A couple days after this, or before this, basically just around this time, a man named Gary Huber, who lived in the Baldwin Park area of Los Angeles, had his home broken into and most of his very vast gun collection stolen.
Okay.
So Baldwin Park has been a mostly Black neighborhood for decades.
Okay.
And therefore was, systemically like deprived of anything. But Gary was white living in this neighborhood, because there were white people in the neighborhood, but it was predominantly a Black neighborhood. And his 20-year-old daughter, Eileen, lived with him. And she'd started hanging out with a quote unquote like bad crowd recently, including 22-year-old John Lewis, who was Eileen's new boyfriend, his sister Robin Machuca, who was 26, and her 26-year-old boyfriend Vincent Hubbard. Now, John had recently been released from a youth detention center where he'd spent most of his life, honestly, more time in than out, and had moved in with Robin and Vincent, who were Eileen's neighbors. Robin and Vincent were part of the Bloods, the group, the gang, the Bloods, and John was a Crip, but somehow they made it work. Robin made the two guys talk out their differences, which is a hilarious concept. So basically they're both part of huge LA rival gangs. You know, in the 90s, these gangs were terrible. They were it was a fucked up time. So these guys are pretty fucking gnarly. I made a note that I'm surprised there was never a sitcom with this premise of a Crip and a Blood having to
Crip and a Blood,
the odd couple.
That would not go over well.
Yeah, right. But so John and Robin came from a very bad background. They were actually half siblings. Neither one of them knew their real fathers. Instead, they both grew up with their mother and a stepfather who was extremely abusive and abused both of them emotionally, physically, and sexually. In fact, when Robin was 12 years old, she became pregnant by her stepfather.
Ugh,
and the way that he told her mother, I know, was by handing her a gun, telling her what he did, and saying, "You need to kill this entire family." So that's that's what we're dealing with. Yeah.
Okay.
The mother did not do this, but she also didn't make the stepfather move out. So instead, Robin, after giving birth, fled literally in the middle of the night with her baby, whom she then immediately put up for adoption. So at this point, she's 13 years old, on the street, having to put up her incest, I mean, not really, but basically incest baby, you know, for adoption. It's so fucked up. And then John was her younger brother, so he was still in that home. He was still there, suffering this. Her boyfriend, Vincent, had a history of mental health issues and was also in and out of jail constantly. So anyway, after this random burglary and stealing of guns, things really went crazy. This group, who, as you can guess, is behind all of these attacks, they started to get more and more violent and more quickly now as well. So the man who was robbed and escaped, like I said, was in early August, about a month after Jose's murder. So Jose's murder kind of seemed like the outlier, like possibly it wasn't intentional. But after they robbed this man, things start really accelerating. And also, there's nothing to say that they didn't commit other crimes and robberies between this that just weren't reported.
Yeah.
So Augustine Ramirez was the group's next victim. When he and his wife were accosted by them after they closed up their restaurant, the Magic Mushroom in West Covina. It's not there anymore. Oh, that's a fantastic name.
It's amazing. Yeah.
So it's not, I know, I wish I looked it up and you can't really find much, but sounds like a rad place. So it's not clear if 20-year-old Eileen was present for these attacks, but she was charged for them later. So the story goes that the four of them attacked Augustine while his wife Linda watched from her car because they drove separately. So Augustine walked her to her car. She got in. Then he started walking back to his car. As he's walking back, this truck pulls up and they start talking to Augustine. Linda sees all this from her car. She sees that the guys have a fucking shotgun. And she's like, oh, fuck. So she's trying to figure out what to do. Should I get out? Should I intervene? And they rob Augustine and then just shoot him with the shotgun, just in the street.
Wow.
Augustine, so his son was either a doctor or a nurse at the hospital where he was taken. And I cannot imagine what that was like because Augustine did die in the hospital the next day.
Oh my God. I mean, I was going to say robbery is a dumb fucking reason to kill people, but this feels like it's not just about the robbery.
Nope.
Like it's also about wanting to kill
people.
Latinos.
Absolutely. Yes. Or yeah. So this is really heartbreaking. And again, now we have Linda, who's an eyewitness. And the cops are like, cool. So it was an orange Pinto or other kind of Dodge. We don't really give a shit. Thanks for telling us. Bye-bye. So, and the reason, like I said, that we don't have that much information is because these people are not white. So nobody really cared.
Right. Yes.
So a few days later, they abducted another Latino couple while they were getting money from an ATM. Just two men. I think it was John and Vincent. They took their car and started driving around, told them, we're not going to kill you because you're cooperating. But in reality, we don't think that's the case. We think the reason that these two got saved was because a police car drove by and it freaked the dudes out. So they drove another block and kicked the couple out of the car. But they did steal their car. So I think what happened is they were on foot or the girls dropped them off and then they got into this car, kicked the couple out, drove away. And then the car was later found, but they made them pull money out of the ATM. They did the whole robbery. So a few days later, we have 41-year-old Willie Sams, who was married to his wife for 21 years and who had just celebrated his daughter's marriage a week before his abduction and murder.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So this was August 18th, 1991. So we have the murder on August 4th, an abduction, and then this murder on August 18th. He was taken from an ATM where he was withdrawing money. He was robbed, made to withdraw money from another ATM, and then they drove him to a junior high school in the area, made him climb into a dumpster, and shot him 7 times.
Oh my God, in a dumpster.
In a fucking dumpster.
That's disgusting.
Yes. The next morning, after his body was found, a man and a woman tried to buy $700 worth of clothing from a Miller's Outpost, which is an old school store. Do you remember those? You might be too young. Okay. No. I remember them because I'm old as shit. It's now Anchor Blue, apparently. I didn't know that.
Oh, okay. I know Anchor Blue.
But Miller's Outpost was kind of like a country western store that was also kind of cool. It predated Urban Outfitters, and it wasn't like Urban Outfitters, but you could like go there to buy Levi's and like certain like cool kid shit. The reason that they went out and turned into Anchor Blue is because they were very attuned to like the 80s style. And when that died out, they had to like kind of rebrand, I think. But anyway, so this man and woman, young, try to buy clothing with Willie's card. It didn't work, and they were like, oh, this card has been reported stolen, and they run out of the store. Now, some clerk with a whole lot of gumption fucking follows them, runs after them out of the store. They didn't actually steal anything. So this clerk is just like, he knows that it's a stolen card, so he's just following them to like get more information. Yeah. And he got their license plate number.
Holy shit.
And he gave it to the police. And the police found the car, staked out the house, but ultimately did nothing.
I was waiting for it. I was like, and caught him?
Yep.
No. Okay.
Nope. So we have all these descriptions of this car. We now have the car with the license plate number, and they don't do anything. But 6 days later, on August 24th, a white woman named Elizabeth Nesbitt was alone in her car at the Puente Hills Mall while her husband went in to run a couple of errands. I think she was in her 50s, early 50s. Okay. Now, he's gone in the mall for about 10 minutes, and when he comes out, she is gone, as is their car. What happened, we later find, is that while he was inside, a man and a woman came up, and we don't know who was there, by the way. We never know exactly who was at each of these abductions because the witnesses are dead. The ones that we do know who it was, obviously, like, it's the 2 men, and then, like, 3 out of 4 of them were there. But the people who died, like, we just know a little bit. Yeah. So she was tied with duct tape by a man and a woman. She was thrown down on the floorboard and covered with a blanket. They drove her to an ATM where they made her give them her PIN number. They went and took the money out. They then pull over to the side of the freeway, and another car driven by another woman comes up, and they shoot Elizabeth to death in the Bronco. It's a Bronco that she's driving. Okay. So they steal her Bronco. Yeah. They put her in the back. They shoot her to death, cover her back up with the blanket, rob her of all of her jewelry.
Oh my God.
And drive away in the getaway car. Now, the cops found her pretty quickly, and they found fingerprints on the ATM slip and the car. But again, at this point, there's a white woman. So now they're looking into it.
Of course, yeah.
Later, yeah, now they give a shit. And also, I will remind you that this is the first murder that occurred at the mall. And these are called the Puente Hills Mall murders. Even though only 2 out of 5 of the victims were actually killed at the mall because they're the white victims.
Oh, interesting.
And this is when people started to give a shit. So
the mall murders, yeah, but that's kind of erasing the rest of the murders.
The rest of the murders,
yeah.
So again, we're at the Puente Hills Mall on August 27th, 3 days after this other white woman was abducted. Yeah. And 56-year-old Shirley Denogen went to the mall on her lunch break. She's like an executive assistant at some big place. She drives a Mercedes, like she's got some money. Mm-hmm. So she's on her lunch break. She tells her coworkers, I'm just going to run a couple errands at the mall. She gets abducted. I think she went into the mall, did some shopping, on her way out, gets abducted. Exact same thing happens. They rob her. They take her to the various ATMs. The other car rolls up. But before they killed her, they shot her in the legs and the hands. Or in one hand, and then shot her in the face. And just dumped her along the freeway.
That's the legs and the hands?
Mm-hmm. So it's like torture.
Yeah.
So now police give a shit. Now they're starting to look. So they found surveillance footage of I think Shirley getting they're at the ATM and they see her sitting in her car while these two people come up and take the money. But you have to remember that this surveillance footage is in the 90s. So it's like every 3 seconds there's like the grainiest photo you've ever seen being taken, and it's in black and white. So it's like hard to see what the fuck that is.
Yeah, not very helpful.
Right. But they still blow those up. They have that, they have the fingerprints, and they have the license plate and the description of the car. Now, ultimately, it was the car that did them in, because a cop was like, oh, I know some people in Baldwin Hills who match that description. Now, to be clear, Baldwin Hills, West Covina, they're not particularly close. Puente Hills, Baldwin Hills, Baldwin Park, they're not close. So these guys are like driving into these areas to commit these crimes, which I think is part of why it took a little while to figure out who they are. Because like I said,
they're not local.
Puente Hills, West Covina, Norwalk, which is where Jose Avina was from, going into Monrovia. These are all different areas. Like, you wouldn't connect people living in Baldwin Park to those areas.
Right. And if they're trying to target Latinos, that's where you find them, is out in, Puente Hills. Like,
right. Exactly.
Also racialized as a Latino area, I think.
Exactly. So this guy is like, oh, I recognize that car. It's like these people that, live in Baldwin Park. It's kind of like, well, I guess it is close. Baldwin Park is close, I guess. I actually just looked it up because I was like, I think I'm kind of wrong to say that.
I mean, it's like a 20-minute, 30-minute drive without traffic, maybe?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you say?
Yeah, I guess so. Because it's out past Downey. So I guess it's not really like considered.
If there's traffic, which there will be, because it's LA, that's a long drive.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Like, the traffic distorts like distance here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just always think of Baldwin Hills. Oh, you know what? Baldwin Hills and Baldwin Park are different. That's why. Because Baldwin Hills actually is in like Crenshaw, and then Baldwin Park is farther out. But they're both like predominantly black areas. So I just had them confused. But Baldwin Park is predominantly like a black area, and then like Puente Hills and all that is like predominantly Latino. Yes. So anyway, forget what I said earlier about it being like in LA, because that's Baldwin Hills, and then Baldwin Park is actually kind of closer to these areas, but it is like not super close. In any case, so they're out in Baldwin Hills, or they're out in Baldwin Park. See, now I'm getting confused. But anyway, so they're like, oh, these kids live, or not kids, these like young adults live in like these apartment complex out there. We think that might be who it is. They're like, oh, talk to this gang unit. They'll know like who they are. So then they start talking to this gang unit who works out there. And he's like, yeah, I know who those people are. It's like, Johnny and, what the fuck is his name? John, Robin, Vincent. They don't know who Eileen is, though. So they're like, but they name these three. So they go and they stake out this apartment. And I think it's Robin who goes to Jack in the Box on the evening of August 30th, like in the middle of the night. So she goes to get food at the Jack in the Box. As she's driving back, they arrest her. They stop her in Jack in the Box. They then go back to the house and raid it, and they find John, they find Vincent, and they find Eileen in the house. So she's there now. So they arrest all of them, they take them in, and John ultimately is the one to confess. He confesses, and he says, oh yeah, we killed everybody because we want to get back at society. I hate everyone, blah, 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 blah. Now later on he says like, oh, I requested a lawyer and they didn't give me one, so I want to throw out my confession. Well, what they said is like, yeah, you can get a lawyer, but it's going to take a couple of days. And then he chose to keep talking. So there was all but so
ambiguous. Yeah.
So here's the things that went down that were kind of really problematic. So they did an interview in the 90s, and the LA Times published this with one of the sheriffs, the LA sheriffs. And he says, talking about the two white women, talking about Elizabeth and Shirley, he's like, they were pure victims. They weren't prostitutes out walking in the middle of the night. They weren't surfers trying to hitch a ride somewhere. These were just like any of us. We all have ATM cards and we all go to the mall.
My mouth just dropped. You
I
can't see
know.
because this
I
is a podcast,
saw.
but I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my God. Like, I'm sorry. The word pure, first of all.
Pure.
Second of all, the association of whiteness and the mall.
Yeah.
There it is.
There it is. Got the sneeze. Nice.
Delayed. The association of like, they were white people. They were at the mall. It's like really funny. Like,
yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like,
so
their mall shopping makes them purer.
Yeah, they don't care about the Latino business owner who had his own restaurant, or the guy just driving to see his fiance. They don't care about.
He doesn't have to be an upstanding person in order to, deserve our sympathy, but he was.
Yeah, they don't care about the father whose daughter just got married, who was married to his wife for 21 years, who was found in a trash can. They care about the two white women that got abducted. So, and then also, when they start prosecuting these four who all did things together and all tried to blame it on each other, they start talking about Eileen, who was the good girl gone bad because she's the white girl. So the three black people who did these crimes, they're like, oh, that's to be expected. They're gang members. They come from a bad background.
They're just bad. Yeah.
Yeah. But this white girl, she was a good girl and she went bad by hanging out with these other people.
Oh, so God.
I mean, in the LA Times is like publishing this shit. They're like fully on board,
It's just dripping with 90s racism.
Oh, it's fucking terrible.
Oh, God.
So in any case, yeah, very, very fucked up. All four of them were charged for I think Eileen was charged for 3 murders. John was charged for 5. John and Vincent were charged for 5. And then Robin was charged for 4. When the trial took place, it was huge news. And like John's like there's a picture of him like sticking his tongue out at the camera and like just being completely like cavalier about the whole situation. They're just like, we don't give a fuck.
Yeah. They're like, we did this murder spree. Isn't it cool?
Yeah. They had about 100. I think I read 78 felonies against them. Like combined, and I think individually, 78 against John. It was fucking crazy. And so they go for the death penalty for all of them, but only John got it because he was considered like the ringleader. Okay. And when he gets it, he's like, it doesn't matter. I don't give a fuck. That's what he says in the court.
Oh,
and then he's like yelling at them. He's like having all these outbursts. Robin got life without parole. Eileen got life without parole. Vincent got life without parole. Eileen was like crying and breathing heavy and like freaking out. Yeah. Robin was just like shaking her head. And then Vincent was bummed, but he was kind of, whatever. And then John was just like outbursts in court and just fucking crazy. So as of now, they're all still in prison. John is still on death row. I mean, he's in California, so it's
California doesn't execute people.
Yeah. No, he's just in a different death row prison, and it's mostly symbolic.
Yeah. Unless we elect like a Republican governor someday, it's probably not going to happen. So.
Yeah. I'm surprised that their sentences aren't being commuted. I wonder when Newsom goes out if he's going to do what the governor of Oregon did and just commute all the death sentences.
I mean, he kind of did because he just like made it so it's not going to happen.
Yeah, but he also like I think he doesn't want to ruin his career, so he wouldn't do anything that's actually like bold or helpful. He's just going to toe the line forever.
That's a good description of Gavin Newsom. Yeah,
really
he's not going to be bold or helpful.
Yeah, he's just going to like useless platitudes and like shit that makes him look good to people who don't think critically. But anyway, getting off topic. So anyway, that's the story. Baldwin Park is actually where Knott's Berry Farm is. So it is like a pretty mixed neighborhood, but it was predominantly black at that time. And then a lot of the areas around were Latino, and there were definitely white people. But like Puente Hills Mall is actually located in the City of Industry, which nobody really lives there, but a ton of people work there. So
hence the name.
Industry. Yeah, City of Industry. So people would drive in from like wherever they lived to work there, and that's how you kind of got a little bit of a mixed neighborhood, but it wasn't really very much.
I didn't place Baldwin Park at all. I was thinking of Baldwin Hills. This is like very niche LA talk. So unless you're from LA, you're probably like, this is stupid. But pull up a map if you want.
Baldwin Park and Baldwin Hills are different. I had them confused earlier too, and I was like, Baldwin Hills, because like Baldwin Hills is in LA, like proper, and Baldwin Park is kind of more where all these places are. It is, if you look on the map though, they are like, it's kind of in the middle of all of them, but it is not like super close. So they were traveling quite a bit.
Okay.
Like north and south and like going west. And so, but anyway, so even LA people get confused by LA geography, apparently.
Yeah.
But there it is. That's our Those are our cases. What are we? I told you my choices for next week. What did we choose? What are we doing?
I don't know. I mean, I'll admit, you told me to look into something, and I don't know.
We can do the other one.
Yeah.
What's the other one? I forget. Guys, we have our shit together, as you can tell. We haven't been busy at all.
On. No, I swear to God, you did tell me.
Our favorite cases from the past year.
Oh,
including updates.
Okay.
Should we do that?
I like that. Let's do that. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to do our favorite cases. They can be older cases. They just have to have something that happened in the last year, or just favorite cases from the last year.
Okay, and this is not cases that we covered, but things that actually happened.
I think so.
In 2022. Okay.
Yeah, let's do some topical shit. We can also do updates. I like it too. Yeah, it's a good way to round out the year, and I think this will be one of our last ones for the year. So yeah. Very, very end of the year style. Anyway, okay, so we're not really editing this. I might edit out a little bit of like me talking about Baldwin Hills incorrectly, but otherwise, I think we're good to go. Cool. Thanks everybody for listening. We love you. Happy holidays, happy new year, and until next week, stay off our list. Stay off them. Bye.